We're live now on YouTube. Really, the purpose of today's event is to look at early stage AI solutions. And we're looking at how that's implemented in startups and also in large corporates. So we've got a stellar panel with us today. We've got Sitah and Wasmiyah from OURZ app. We've got John McKenna from Seize AI and also Gianluca Mauro from the AI Academy. Before we kick off and find out more about the startups and their tech and their kind of AI solutions, I'd actually like to kick off with Gianluca because he spends his days, weeks, and months explaining AI to students and startups and corporates. So Gianluca, do you want to kick off by talking a little bit about your background, your work at the AI Academy, and giving us a one-liner on what artificial intelligence is?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, first of all. So my name is Gianluca Mauro. I run a company called AI Academy. And by background, I'm actually an energy engineer. So I didn't study AI at university, but I got passionate about AI when I was living in Silicon Valley 7 years ago. And I think the reason why I mentioned this and the reason why I think this is important is because in Silicon Valley, what I realized is that this technology was pretty much ready. It was pretty much mature to be used in companies, in corporations, in startups. But when I came back to Europe, I realized that a lot of people don't have a clear understanding about what that is and how they can use it. And so that's why I transitioned into this, into artificial intelligence, and I founded AI Academy to teach it to startups, corporates, all sorts of professionals. So the one line about what AI is, I think it's important to say what AI is today, because AI is a technology that has changed a lot during time. And right now, AI is mostly based on machine learning. So AI today means allowing computers to learn from data. So learning from examples. This sounds very simple, right? Very basic. You just take data, feed it to a computer and ask it to learn from it. It turns out that it's simple to understand, but extremely powerful. And the nuances of these concepts are what makes the difference between a successful company using AI and a company that is struggling instead. And then we're going to talk about later on about what makes a company successful and what makes a company instead struggling a little bit.
Thanks, Gianluca. I think that's a pretty accurate description of AI in a nutshell. We could obviously talk about it for hours. Sitah and Wasmiyah, would love to hear from you about what you were doing before OURZ app, what OURZ app is, and yeah, what your mission is.
Hi, everyone. First of all, it's our great pleasure to be a part of this panel, and we would like to thank you for having us, and thanks to Jacqueline Vincent for introducing us to this opportunity. I am Wasmiyah Alhayyan, co-founder of OURZ, computer science teacher from Kuwait. I did a research paper. It was my graduate project about augmented reality 2018 on ACSAT under the name of Google Tango and ARCore under the view of augmented reality. When augmented reality was a big thing before 4 years. And now I am working with my colleague Sitah on project OURZ as a startup.
Thank you, Wasmiyah. As Wasmiyah said, it's our great pleasure to be part of this panel. My name is Sitah, the co-founder of OURZ. I'm a system and information analyst and work in the governmental sector in Kuwait, which is Central Agency for Information Technology. I was part of remote work initiative that's been activated in the pandemic. It focuses about the awareness in terms of how to provide a safe work environment and give the employees the proper tools and how to use these tools. And then I was part of business continuity disaster recovery plan, which remote work is part of it. The plan is about providing a data center for disaster recovery to host governmental entities. I was part of this plan for approximately 10 months. Now I'm the team leader of National Data Center Strategy, which we are currently working on it. The main goal of this strategy is to have a data center that meet all the requirements and the standards for Tier 3 certifications. And it's a great pleasure to be part of something that benefits my country, especially for all the governmental sector. Wasmiyah, okay. OURZ came all along with the pandemic. It was just an idea that's been shared through a chat, but then the idea was building up every time we meet until we said, let's stop talking and let's do it. Let me tell you about OURZ. OURZ is a platform where parents can interact with other parents or relatives to share, exchange, and learn about parenthood. And they can find users who have the same situation or case. Our goal with OURZ is to give the users a safe platform where they can have the option to interact anonymously. We plan to launch the app at the 1st of 2022 worldwide to connect the parents over the globe. That's it. I hope it's clear.
That's incredible. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. I wanted to ask you, why have you decided to create an app for this? Where did this kind of idea come from?
Actually, we have a lot of ideas, to be honest. Then we thought of this idea so it helped the parents, especially in terms of awareness. Some parents don't know how to
where to start and how to process.
Especially Wasmiyah is a new mom.
Yes, it starts all about me at the first time.
Yeah.
So I was pregnant and I was so nervous that I cannot collect any ideas. So I shared this thought with my colleagues. Then we came up with OURZ to sort our ideas and make AI help me specifically.
Yeah, it was just a small idea first, but as we said, it built up every time we meet, and that's our now.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love to hear the drive and that you stopped talking and started working on it. I love to hear that. John, tell us a little bit about Seize AI and the industries you work in, and why did you decide to start an AI business?
Sure thing. And just to start by echoing everyone else's thanks. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Super excited to share what we're up to. So we're a drone company, I guess, is the simple way of describing us. But if you stand back a little bit, the bigger picture is I've been working in drones for over 10 years, and now we're beginning to really internalize that we're in the beginning of a big transformation. Maybe too big to say, but maybe not, that we're on the, humankind's on the cusp of another major breakthrough. If you imagine, it could be a decade or so when unmanned aerial vehicles will really transform our lives. It'll transform how we live, how we work, and at some point even how we travel. So that's really going to be a big change for us, and we'll put a new infrastructure in the sky to rival what we have on land in road and rail. And these systems will, they'll contribute a lot to sustainability of our planet. So improving critical infrastructure, keeping workers safe, and preserving our planet. So that wasn't how we started the business, but that's very clearly the mission for our business now, is to help develop the operating system that makes this big vision come true. But the star point was actually a little bit more gritty than that. My background is engineering, structural engineering. So I spent my early career working in construction. And what I could see by cross-referencing the work that I'd done for a decade or so in the drone space and my understanding of industry, I could see that these systems had huge potential to help industry, and that the challenge was that businesses had been at relatively small scale understanding that drones could help them. But if you're a large business, the challenge is, how do you take a proof of concept or a single person flying a single drone, and how do you turn that into something that is really a very significant capability across the industry? So how do you fly fleets of drones safely, addressing a really wide range of missions, and do that at massive scale? So if you think of the sort of scale of, let's say, an industry like oil and gas. We founded the business in 2017. Since then, we've secured the most advanced permission the UK regulator has ever given to a drone company, and one of the most advanced regulatory permissions given to a drone company by a developed market aviation regulator. And this system is now in test with a really wide range of industries as we learn and as our customers learn where the system is best used. And that ranges from construction, my background, so it's Skanska and HS2, Sellafield nuclear facility, National Grid and the network rail with the rail network, Atkins with the road network, Vodafone, and we're in conversations with others now, interesting as well, about surveying the telecoms network. And so essentially it's trying to understand the match between our capabilities and industry as to how our system can replace work that's dirty, difficult and dangerous today. So whether it's a person climbing a live electricity pylon, or climbing around an oil and gas facility, or flying somewhere in a helicopter, there's really a lot that an unmanned system can do today that reduces risk, reduces cost and reduces climate impact. So that's the focus. So the business was founded by myself in 2017 and my co-founders, who are ex-Apple, CERN, McLaren and hedge funds. As I mentioned, I'm a lowly structural engineer relative to these guys. I went from engineer to strategy consultant to an entrepreneur, but these guys are hardcore engineers who between them have won 2 America's Cups, a Formula One World Championships, and led software teams developing billions of pounds. So yeah, it sort of started with a relatively small focused mission on matching technology of drones and AI to industry, but really it's a much larger vision. And I guess just to touch on the AI side of it, it's an interesting space, AI crossed with regulation, in particular aviation regulation. And to Gianluca's point earlier on, for sure we are building, much like Tesla is building and many AI businesses are building, ways to capture data in the real world and to learn from that so the system can improve. But equally, the regulator, demystifying AI is not something that the regulator is comfortable with. They don't want they want something that doesn't have an element of mystique about it at all. So we have to work very closely with the aviation regulators to put technology into the public domain that's deterministically proven to be safe. And we need to evolve towards increasing the use of AI over time. So today, our AI is not in the control loop, it supports the control loop, and we will evolve over time to prove its safety. And everyone's on that same journey in autonomy. So the long version, but hopefully gives you a picture.
Yes, absolutely, John. Thank you for that. And you touched on something very important. I think it's the core of AI, and that is data. I think it's really important to talk about that because it's a kind of tricky situation, because you need data to train the models, but where do you get the data from to start with? So maybe for John, how did you guys get started, and what like data sets were you using? If you could talk about that.
Yeah, awesome question. So if you look at the behemoth in the room, the one that the trailblazer, Tesla, ultimately, what Tesla have done is almost created a beautiful car as a Trojan horse. So the Trojan horse, the beautiful car, is out there, it's purchased by people and it's driven by people. And as it's driving, it's gathering data, and that data is being used, is being collected, is being brought back to the master servers in the US, no doubt, where it's being used to improve algorithms. And then Tesla runs shadow versions of the software on board, which try to predict what's going to happen next and match that to what the human actually does. So what they are doing is they're leveraging people who do something every day, driving a car, to be able to capture data of how that system behaves in the real world. And we think about it in exactly the same way. We need to get a piece of technology proven to be safe, that the regulator is comfortable with, so that it uses deterministic technology. We enable it to be flown with a human pilot, and the human pilot is supported by a range of technologies spanning from computer vision right the way through to machine learning. And that allows us to put the system in the real world, so the system is being flown for real and captures real data from which we can learn and evolve to improve the system's autonomy. And when we get to the point where we believe a piece of the puzzle is safe, we will apply for that to be included in the control loop. And so we're on this kind of continual path. But these systems can't be built in a lab. You can't just emerge from a lab, even with the simulators we have today. You can't just suddenly say we've developed something, now it's safe in the real world. The reality is you have to find a way of getting it used in the real world so that it's subject to all the real world craziness of our lives, not the perfect world of simulation. And so it can learn and be proven to be safe. And so there really is, we don't believe there's any way of just suddenly jumping from theory into the real world and having a regulator or indeed a paying customer say this is useful. So there's that step in the interim, which is deploying using other forms of technology that can help you get the data that you need, and then starting the circle of ingesting data using that to prove the system is safe.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's all super, super relevant and insightful. Sitah and Wasmiyah, I know you're at the very early stages of building your app or thinking about how you're going to build it, but have you thought about this question of data and gathering data and how you're going to approach it?
Actually, we need the data to personalize the app. So we come with the idea that why we don't use the AI to make it more, to take another level of personalizing, to connect our partners with each others. Like we have the normal users and we have the specialists. So we want to connect them together. We want to, if someone needs help and he just like posts his problem, the AI will analyze the post and share it with the specific specialist that can help him in this situation. As we know, it's not just for the parenting, it's all about the mental health also. So mental health and family issues like this.
Yeah, so make it easy for the specialists to reach the users.
Yeah, I really think that matchmaking is super powerful. So I can't wait to see you both kind of develop that and then be able to share it with us, because that sounds really exciting. Gianluca, to look at it maybe from a large, an SME or a large corporate perspective, say you've got the data sets, but then you don't necessarily have the permission to use that data. So you haven't asked the consumer for it, or you just can't use it. Where do you start and how do you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, so I think a lot of companies give too much weight on the quantity of data that they have. And that's because the expression big data has been so hyped, right? So I remember that, especially when I started working with AI 6-7 years ago, a lot of companies were coming to me saying that they had this humongous data set that they wanted to use. But what they forget is that there are a bunch of other characteristics of a data set that you need to have for it to be valuable. One of them is, as you mentioned, accessibility. I can tell you about an experience that a few friends of mine that worked as data scientists for a large multinational organization in Italy. This company hired very early on in the AI hype curve, tens of data scientists. And most of them, I think half the team left in the first 6 months. And that was because they got so frustrated of all the friction, all the bottlenecks that they needed to face to get the data to their computer and then start working. That was a large issue. So accessibility is one key problem that a lot of corporates have. On the other hand, if you look at companies like Google, like Tesla, as John was mentioning before, all these companies that have an AI culture, they make it extremely easy for their data scientists or their tech teams to experiment. And a good example is what Google has done with their data centers. In 2014, there was a paper released by the Google data center team about how one of their engineers, one of the data center engineers, built a small prototype to see if they could use machine learning to optimize the energy consumption of these data centers. And that little experiment that these data scientists did in the 20% free time, Google has this rule that you can use 20% of your work time to pursue all the projects. This engineer, a mechanical engineer, was able to just download all the data that he needed from his data centers, make a little prototype, test the waters, see if that could actually work. And that led to a massive project at DeepMind that led Google to save 40% of their energy bill. So 40, that's unheard of in the field of energy engineering. So accessibility is a very important problem, especially for large corporations who, they tend to be a little bit slow in adapting the way of working. That's normal. These are companies that have layers and layers and layers of history, of structure, whereas a company like Google that is relatively recent and started off with having AI at its core and at the core of its culture has a much easier time in solving these problems. Something else that I think it's important to mention is not just accessibility, but also quality of data. So what does it mean, data quality? It means that not all data is the same, obviously. You can have terabytes and terabytes of data, but if this data hasn't been collected following some precise procedures, hasn't been documented the way that you collected it, hasn't been labeled, hasn't been processed, this data may not give you what you expect. Machine learning is as good as the data. There's a new trend in AI, actually, which is data-centric AI. What does it mean? It means that instead of focusing that much on the models, on the algorithms, on the software side, we start focusing more on the kind of data that we feed these algorithms with. There's a famous saying in statistics, which is garbage in, garbage out. If you put the wrong kind of data in your algorithms, it's just never going to work. So I think that the future of AI, especially in business applications, is going to be more focused on making sure that your data is available, first of all, so having the right processes in place, but also trying to find a way to ensure that data quality is the right one, and so it's as good as possible. And all the models are going to start to become commoditized by tools like machine learning as a service products and so far and so forth.
That's super interesting. And yeah, garbage in, garbage out. Never heard of that, but interesting saying. So that's the data part. And I think at least the way I see it, the other core part of being able to deliver any kind of AI solution are the people, the talents. What I want to ask, and actually touch on what John said earlier about hiring people from CERN and other amazing organizations. John, how did you, when you started the company back in 2017, how did you decide who to bring along with you on this journey, and who the first hires were, and what roles are important? Because there's so much out there, right? AI scientist, AI researcher, data scientists, machine learning engineer. How did you go about the hiring aspect?
Yeah, it's a very competitive space, hiring to be able to move this sort of technology forward. And I guess I was very lucky. I met our CTO just a couple of months after starting the business, and I didn't realize back then quite how much I needed him, but I made a bit of a bet really on on the partnership. And so, I effectively, brought him in as an equal partner, and that was pretty much the real founding of the business. Before that point, as with any business, you've got what you think is a very clear view of what you're trying to do, but you're missing a lot of technical information, really, certainly from my background. I was very clear on the objectives, but not so much on the technology. And Eduardo brought really a wealth of knowledge from his years in CERN and America's Cups. And he was one of a small group of senior engineers in Apple in Cupertino. So he'd spent a long time in Silicon Valley and really understanding in much greater depth than me what was going to be required. Damien and Richard joined soon after. Again, these are not the sort of people you could hire. I mean, Richard was on the team with Lewis Hamilton when Lewis won his first World Championships, and Richard was the voice in his ear that year. Had been pretty fundamental to that victory, and before that or after that had helped build the McLaren P1 supercar. So there's not people you can really hire. Damien's role before joining us was head of European derivatives at Eaton Park, which was a hedge fund with $14 billion assets under management. There was no change under my mattress that was going to get him to join us. So it was more about selling the vision and selling the dream. And in reality, you're not selling, you're sort of laying something out that they believe in and that they add enormous value and color to and depth of understanding. And so it was a little bit the luck of the Irish kind of, I was lucky enough to meet Eduardo, and things snowballed from there. And I think that's really, really, that's a kind of an honest appraisal of the situation. From that point onwards, we still find it challenging to hire senior engineers, the sorts that we need, and they are still very expensive. But we have a snowball that has a lot of kudos to it, that's moving quite quickly, and people are bought into the bigger vision now. Like with any of these projects, there are not so many businesses that are going to emerge out the far side as winners in the space, and we've sort of poked our nose ahead. And the guys are fun, and they're all in their mid to late 40s. They've been and done it and built a lot. So it's quite a good mix of senior engineers with experience and still a lot of passion for what we're doing. I think that kind of passion and the vision, the dream is the core. These engineers, are engineers deep down and are deeply passionate about building something great. And that's the piece of the puzzle. The money is kind of table stakes. Lots of other things like location and people are all really important as well. But essentially the core mission and the belief they're joining a team that can win, I think, is the bit that gets them across the line. But it's as we scale, it's definitely going to be a key area of focus for us as a senior team to keep building that team and make it the best in the world. But that's hard. And there isn't really any way of short circuiting. Yeah,
you're right. It is very, very competitive. A question for Sitah and Wasmiyah. You Sitah, you're an information and systems analyst, and Wasmiyah, you're a computer teacher. How has this really strong engineering background helped you in developing your app?
Actually, as we study machine learning in college, yes, I studied in education college, and she studied in Kuwait University. So from a different perspective, and actually we start from college, but we continue ourselves. Like we learn it by ourselves.
Like external courses and
yes, from YouTube, and we just at the beginning. We still at the beginning. Unfortunately, we don't have such strong
deep knowledge in AI.
Yes, and until now we cannot reach like any academy or someone who can teach us, let's say. Yes, so we still at the beginning. we are still fighting for it.
Of course, yeah. But it's great to hear that you're educating yourself and you're taking that education you already have and just building it further. I think that's really amazing. I have a question for Gianluca about making AI inclusive. And what I mean by that is I've worked at startups using like AI, natural language processing, and that's kind of the USP, right? But sometimes it feels that the knowledge is really held by the data scientists or the product people or people on the tech team. And then maybe the people on ops and sales and marketing don't feel as included. So what do you do if you're a founder of a startup and you want to, you're 10, 20 people, and you want to make sure that everybody understands the vision, but also everybody understands the technology that you're delivering?
Yeah, so I think this is a very common issue. So I think that a lot of engineers, a lot of technical people, they're used to working in the little bubble, looking at, their black screen, writing lines of code, and they tend to not engage that much in explaining what they're doing and in making sure that all the different stakeholders within the company and outside of the company as well have a deep understanding of how this technology works. And by deep understanding, I don't mean teaching, how to write JavaScript queries or, the intricacies of code. I mean, understanding the processing, understanding from an operational level. But I think this is it's a very big problem. I can safely say that most of the issues that I had consulting large corporations such as Procter & Gamble or Merck or Brunello Cucinelli in Italy, a fashion company, most of the issues that I had were because there was not a right cooperation between the people who knew about the problem, so the business people, the product managers, and the people who were building the solution. So if you don't have that little bridge, then you encounter all sorts of issues. And I can tell you one example from my personal experience, actually for a project that I was running a couple of months ago. We started working on this project for a large consumer goods company. A company that makes roughly 1.3 billion euros in revenues per year. And we started this project working with some domain experts, so people that were going to use it. We started off, we had a brief. The brief was very short, it was too short, I thought. And then we started working on a solution. 3 months down the line, we are ready to deliver this solution. And when we presented it back to our stakeholders, to the people that were going to use it, we found out that we basically didn't understand each other. There were a few key elements of that problem that we didn't get, and we could have never solved because there was no data for it. But we found that out after 3 months of development. Such a huge waste of resources, huge waste of time. And the issue is, I'll take it on me, it's because we failed in having a right cooperation between these two kinds of people. So how do you solve this problem? Well, I think the main issue is that we need to break these silos. We need to break these walls that are separating the people that work in tech and the people that work in the business. We need to include business people in technical decisions. We need to give them all the tools they need to understand actually what is machine learning, what is AI, what does it mean to use data, what kind of data do you need, how do you evaluate if an algorithm is working or not? Because in the end of the day, unless we're doing pure research, what we are trying to do as machine learning practitioners, as research scientists, as data scientists, is try to build tools that solve a problem for someone. And so we usually don't have the right knowledge of the problem. We are experts in the solution. We are experts in the tool. But the persons who understand the problem, they need to be included in the design process of all these AI algorithms, of these AI projects. That's really the only way of making AI work for people, so for the final users. And I think, again, especially corporates should put extra emphasis on this, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make the difference between successful and unsuccessful AI projects. It's very important.
Definitely. The bridge, absolutely. So that everybody's synced up and everybody knows what's going on. Agreed. If we look after deploying your models and, you've got your AI working, I have a really kind of specific question about balancing building the product and commercialization. And what I mean by that is, you're training your model. It's not proven. It's not done. At what stage can you start, charging your customers? I don't know, John, if you have any insights on that you can share.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest decision to take. You're developing something that, particularly in our case, has some very high hurdles in terms of safety. And you're sharing what it does both with the regulator, who's an important part of our world, and customers. And it's a reality. You're on a journey, journey, as Gianluca says, to deeply understand the customer's problem. And you have no hope of doing that if you stay in your box. And equally, you can't stay in your box until everything's absolutely perfect. So it's very difficult. You have to, the concept of minimum viable product, people talk a lot about the minimum, but actually I read a great article once which talked about viable being more important. So the hurdle that you have to hit is that when you present the product, people can see that it has the potential to radically change their world. So the solution has is more than viable. It's the solution represents something of extremely high value. So it's not just minimum as in it works, but it actually does really provide a significant valuable solution to the customer. So that balancing those two things all the time, trying to put something on the ground that doesn't communicate in any way negatively. You're not putting something which is shoddy work, but you're not putting something that's absolutely perfect either. Finding that is very difficult when you've got very proud engineers. All engineers are super proud of what they do and they never want to show something halfway done. So that's very difficult. And I find myself in that box as well. But equally, you have to present something that is good enough and is presented in a context where the customer can see a big opportunity. And so you have to juggle that. There's no point to present something that solves an enormous problem but looks like it's half-baked. There's no point in presenting something that is a beautiful solution but doesn't address a large problem or doesn't solve, so it's a really difficult juggle, I think. And in these types of companies which are very engineer-led, there's a really strong risk of doing what every startup, the biggest source of failure for startups is not doing, as Gianluca said, presenting something which people want. You present something that is a beautiful technical solution but isn't wanted enough by the market. So when you're very engineering-led, you can really be pulled in that direction of perfecting engineering but not perfecting the value proposition. So it's really difficult. I think it's the hardest piece of the puzzle, is trying to time when you put something in front of the customer such that they can see the potential, not before that, because before that they don't quite get it. But as early as you can, when you know that it's viable from a technical point of view, but just about, and that it's going to open their eyes to the potential rather than close it down, because you quite often only ever get one chance. So it's kind of an engineering and commercial/marketing decision which relates to the timing of everything that you show, which is hard. I think there's a danger on both ends of the spectrum, going too fast and showing things too early, and going too slow and staying too proud of what you're doing and never showing it to anyone. So that's we wrestle with that a lot internally. Just think about that a lot internally, about when we should break cover with things.
Absolutely, and I'm sure some of the founders tuning in, building AI startups, feel the same way.
Yeah.
I wanted to take it back to the corporate perspective, actually. And, Gianluca, if you think about a person within an organization, maybe somebody who's very innovative, who's very forward-thinking, or who is just really in the innovation ecosystem, bringing in a new idea to the table and kind of wanting to take an AI initiative forward. I guess my two questions are, how can this person, or maybe it's a group of people, get buy-in from management? And how can they secure budget for whatever project they have in mind?
Yeah, so funny story. Before releasing a book that I wrote called Zero to AI, I had a chapter that used a metaphor to explain what I thought was a good strategy for this. And I was using the spread of a virus as a metaphor, how to spread this enthusiasm for AI, and then how to take it off because COVID was happening. And thank God I didn't do that, because otherwise it would have been kind of out of touch. But this was the idea. So follow me. Let's suppose, usually, companies, not everybody is super excited about AI. There's like a few different kinds of approaches and personas, let's say. There's people that are extremely enthusiastic about this technology. There's people that fear it a little bit, and it's not that they fear that it's gonna, destroy the company or you're gonna have killer robots. They mostly fear about their position. They feel that they're gonna lose control. They feel that it's a new technology coming in that they don't understand, that's gonna make them lose power. And then there are the skeptics. So usually you start from the people that are excited, right? So these are the people that are gonna find the first projects, and they have to convince both the fearful people and the skeptics that AI can actually help everybody. So my recommendation for these people was to try to make this enthusiasm spread towards the rest of the organization. And the vector to make this enthusiasm spread is pilot projects. As John was saying before, I agree 100%. MVPs are key to show the value that you can bring with this technology, but it has to be viable. It can't just be minimum, it has to be something that brings value. So what I recommend is identifying some low-hanging fruits, and incorporates there are plenty usually. The challenge is not in building stuff, is in finding these low-hanging fruits. Picking them is usually not too hard. It's just finding them. Once you find them, build something that doesn't take ages to build, because simply nobody's going to give you budget for a 3-year-long project before you make them excited about the potential of this technology. You first need to make them excited, and then pitch the 3 years long project. So come up with some small pilot project, can last for maybe 3 months, maybe 2 months. Sometimes I even challenge my customers and tell them, hey, what can we do in 2 weeks? Something so condensed, so closed in a little box of time that you can use it to prove to the rest of the people that AI can actually be something that can bring them value. And have a little, very small case study about how that worked in a company they helped. It's actually the same company I was talking about before. So they started doing their first AI projects 2 years ago. And they started off with a project in their marketing department because they knew that there was a low-hanging fruit, something that another company had done already, and they could just copy and paste with their own data. So we did that. Took us more or less 2 months to build a first MVP. I was ashamed of my MVP. It was literally a PDF of a list of stores where they should invest more money and a list of stores where they should invest less money. That was it. I felt really bad about going to the CMO of a billion-dollar company with a PDF saying, hey, this is the output of my AI model, a simple PDF. But hey, they started using it and they made money with it. It brought them results. So what happened was that the rest of the organization saw that AI can bring tangible results, and you don't need 200 PhDs in machine learning to do that. You can start with small prototypes, with something that is both minimum and viable. And if I fast forward to what's happening today, I think they're running 7 projects in parallel in all sorts of departments, from sales forecasting, quality control, customer service, supply chain, marketing, etc., etc. But you gotta start from somewhere. And so usually, again, the things you need are a group of people that are enthusiastic, they want to try, they want to get their hands dirty, and a vector for this enthusiasm to spread, which is, in my opinion, a good pilot project, a good MVP that is both minimum, most of all valuable.
Absolutely. Low-hanging fruit. So start there and then you can kind of expand. It makes total sense. I wanted to talk a little bit about helpful resources on the AI journey. So communities, networks, accelerators like OURZ. Sitah and Wasmiyah, I know you participated in the AWS entrepreneurship program in Kuwait. How did it help you? What did it bring to this app that you're building?
Actually, I took a cloud practitioner course. It's more about cloud and to just learn about the concept and how, like, to integrate the cloud with the idea not the actual server. It's just a concept.
Yeah, we found that making our app totally cloud friendly will help us even with the cost and how is the cloud can cooperate with the AI more than having a server. Yes, and because we both under the budget because we still have our jobs. Then after a job, we go to create ours and put we actually نطلع من البيت الساعة.
We actually work from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. just outside the house. Yeah, that's why.
2 full-time jobs as a woman. So yes, but we put all our knowledge and we still learning to put the high tech on our app. So we really look forward for having a great features in our app.
And as I know, there will be a course soon for governmental employees about the cloud partitioner. So I may take it also to learn more.
That's awesome. And it's great to hear that there are some local initiatives that are focusing on kind of educating around cloud computing, engineering, software development and things like that. That's really, really,
especially
great.
In my actual work, they focuses more about these courses like AWS, Huawei, Fortinet, and a lot of more.
Awesome. We love to hear that. That's great. John, I know you participated on TechStars. What do you think has been maybe there are a few things that have helped you on your journey since 2017, especially building an AI startup?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of networks, and certainly TechStars is one monster network. But I think I'll talk about TechStars in a minute, but I think there's kind of a lot we can do by being part of networks, whether it's informal networks on WhatsApp, whether it's meetup groups, of which there are millions all over the world. I think in this tech world, and particularly at this point in time with sort of a lot of VC money around, the outcome for many of these tech businesses is quite binary. You're either going to be a business that succeeds, or there might be a zero attached to your name after several years of work. And being part of networks and the right networks, informal and formal, is, I think, a really key part of the journey. There's so much. I'm 50 now and I still know nothing. I still learn every day. The span of all of the things that we need to try to get our heads around to run a good business is enormous. And people who have done it before and are experts in particular areas have so much to give. And many of them are really, I've always been shocked when you ask a question of someone and ask for their expertise, how well people respond. So it's very hard because we're all time, limited creatures, but actually working with as many people as we can, I think, is a really big accelerator. And it's always really tempting to kind of lock down and just work harder by yourself. But I've always found being part of a network has helped. And that was kind of, we joined TechStars. It's been a great example of that. Through TechStars, we met something like 200 VCs, and we're put under an enormous amount of pressure in a very concentrated period of time to polish our pitch. And we've been benefiting from that kind of short, intense period of work and from the network that came out of it a lot. And we're going into our next big round, and I can see TechStars adding value more and more in terms of the relationships that we've built and the relationships that endure from that time. But I would say it's a really general point. We are time limited, so you can't join every network that's out there. But really, I would say when the opportunity comes up, I would think hard about joining the network, because generally I found the time return is greater than the time you put in. And you can create your own networks where ones don't exist. In London, we created London Computer Vision by smashing together 4 different meetups into one which is very focused on computer vision, which is what we deeply care about. But there are those opportunities or networks that exist that you can join. My wife is part of a network of entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, who are massively supportive to each other. I think there's a lot to be gained for it, and it's always uncomfortable to go into these things, and it's always uncomfortable to ask, but generally I found the ROI to be worth it, and at some point in time I'd love to be able to be in the position where I can offer some expertise in return. So
absolutely, that's very, very insightful, and I think that's going to help a lot of people that are tuning in right now. I want to move to the Q&A because I realize we have a few minutes left, and I kind of want to get through that as well. There is a question for Sitah and Wasmiyah that I'll start with. So somebody is saying, really cool insights from the founders in Kuwait. Can you share, you shared that you are in a full-time job, so that must be hard. I'd love to hear what or who it was that inspired you to start a business. So Sitah and Wasmiyah, could you answer that? Who is the inspiration behind OURZ app?
Actually, as we said before, Wasmiyah, she's a new mom. That's why we started this business.
Yes, because I found out that the struggle is real for all new moms. So instead of focusing on taking care of herself, she is reading, try to reach for professionals. Actually, because of that, I was in so many moms group on WhatsApp, Instagram, and all the social media, and this is what wasn't convenient at all. Actually, because of that, I was a new mom, and I have at the same group moms for 2, 3, and also no male parents on these groups. So I feel like why there is no app for all of this? Why is there is no app that make us feel free to share and reach the what we want directly, if we want someone or somewhere for
as she said, the males also need some advice or want to reach for help, but in our community just the moms ask for help, and this group just for moms. So we give this opportunity also for fathers and also the relatives.
Yeah, I really like that you have found this problem and you're tackling it head on, and you haven't been able to find a solution elsewhere. So you're like, I'm going to build it myself. So really, really amazing. And thank you so much for sharing.
Also, because we, as many as group I attend, there is so many quantity, but not quality. So yes, so as he said before, so the idea of OURZ is have the quality more than quantity, even in AI.
Amazing, thank you guys. I think there was a question for Gianluca too. Katerina says, jumping on what Gianluca is saying, what makes bad quality data for machine learning? If you could elaborate and give some examples on that. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, just tell you one example from my personal experience. I was building a model for a pharmaceutical company, and they had 14 years, I think, something like this, worth of data from their CRM, so customer relationship management. It was basically all the inquiries that patients were asking to their patient support program. So 14 years of data, looked like a lot of data that we could use. The problem was that really practically, they changed database 3 times. And so it was spread over 3 different databases. And it was really hard to put everything in the same place, to just merge everything. One problem. Second problem, there was not a clear documentation on what different columns meant, what different values meant. So I had to spend 2 to 3 months interviewing call center operators, nurses, patients, and just to try to understand what this data was representing, what was it looking at. That was a big issue. Empty values, so rows that were not filled in properly, a lot of problems. So this is just one example of bad quality data. And instead of focusing on the details of it, I just want to try to give you an idea about why this happens. Usually it happens because data is not collected strategically. So if John before was talking about Tesla, you can be 100% sure that the data that Tesla collects has been vetted, has been checked, and people know that they can use it and it has the right quality. It doesn't have, problems in the sensors and all that kind of stuff. A lot of companies don't have that culture, end up collecting bad quality data. That it just creates a lot of headaches for people that need to use it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, if a company is big, they have to kind of relearn the way that they collect data and the way their kind of data strategy and data vision. So thank you so much for answering that.
Absolutely.
We've got a few minutes left. If anybody else has questions added in, I have a really, really fun kind of, well, not fun, but like the question everybody asks: to what extent do you predict that AI will be replacing jobs, and has it started happening already? If anybody has any inputs on this, please go ahead. I think John has, yeah.
I think AI and robotics are going to change a lot of things for a lot of people. It definitely means some jobs, some dangerous, dirty, difficult, or very repetitive tasks will be replaced. That I think is already happening, and it's a foregone conclusion. But equally, I think human ingenuity and creativity is fundamental to this journey. We're going to be core to that, and new jobs, very highly skilled jobs, will be created as a result of it. So certainly for the next 10 years or so, I think we're in a collaborative union with AI and robots. If we look at the Tesla Model 3, Musk decided it was all going to be built by robots. Now I believe there's 2 jobs, welding and painting, which are done by robots alone, and 400 other tasks are done by man and machine working together. I think that's where we're going for the next little while anyway.
I think if I can add a little thing on top of that is, one, don't look at AI replacing jobs, look at AI replacing tasks. So single operations. If your job is doing a single operation over and over, then you're in danger. But then I question whether that's a job for a human being. There's a big case in China. There were some factories building microchips, and there were a lot of suicides because people were just trying completely crazy, but just soldering the same thing for 16 hours. So I question whether these jobs are supposed to be made by humans in the first place. And second thing I want to say is a quote by a professor from Harvard who said, I don't think AI is going to replace managers, but I am pretty sure that managers who understand AI are going to replace managers who don't. So right now I will focus not on AI replacing us, but on the fact that if you know AI, then you have, some pretty good career opportunities. And if you don't understand it, then you may become outdated really fast.
Yeah, so there's a call to action for everybody. Read up on AI, stay up to date with what's happening in the industry, and everything will be okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Sitah, Wasmiyah, Gianluca, and John for joining our panel and sharing their insights, their startup journeys, and their AI experience. Aerospace Xelerated applications close on October 8th, next week. So if you're an AI startup that would like to apply, please do check out our website. And yes, this will be available on YouTube after. So keep an eye out. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.